My name is Patch Justice. I'm 20 years old, and I'm an artist educator. They say the 60s was crazy, but the 80s was worse. Crack blacks and gave birth to a curse. The moon's bright, the sky's misty. Know my future, cause I know my history. My life predicted by a gypsy. Murder she wrote at the end of the story, the streets get me. That's why I live quickly and always keep a pistol with me. Ghetto prisoner, won't stop fighting until I'm freed. Raised in the city of fallen angels where niggas ain't scared to bleed. If money's the root of all evil, then greed's the seed. This ain't living. We taking cause ain't nobody giving. America's a rich man's vision, but a poor man's prison. So don't expect these politicians to give us a pot to piss in. My mother was, kind of naive and met my father who had just finished doing juvenile life in YA for murder. And he met my mom as soon as he got out, turned her out, immediately had her out there hoeing and smoking crack cocaine. She had me in '85. He was in jail. After he went to jail, they broke up. They were briefly married. From there, they took me from my mother because of her addiction. I was staying with my grandmother who spent a lot of years in the school district, so she spoiled me, honestly, like the first 6 years of my life. But what was funny was she stayed right down the street from the crack house where my mom would get high at. So as a little kid, I remember playing outside and I could see my mom down the street getting high. She used to be shoeless and dirty and real skinny, and I always knew that was my mom. I never really felt like bad towards her, even though she was getting high. I just felt like that was my mom and I loved her, and hopefully I thought she would get better. My grandmother really taught me a lot of things as far as searching for knowledge and getting an education, but she was old, so she couldn't handle me, and I was a major behavior problem my whole life. In school, I got suspended the first time in first grade. I was kicked out in second grade and kicked out every grade ever since then. Honest. I had an opportunity when I was 8 or 9 years old to go to a school out in Bel-Air where the tuition was like $1,500 to $1,700 a month. And it was a very prestigious school. A lot of celebrities' children went there, and I got that opportunity from participating in a youth after-school program or whatnot. And I was reading the LA Times at a young age, and the philanthropists that would come and visit and fund that center, they took an interest in me and felt that it'd be a good idea to put me in that school. They didn't know any of the history of my behavior in school. They just knew I was a smart kid. So it was kind of a culture shock to go to that school. All the kids were white, straight up, and I was straight out the ghetto. It was around the time of the O.J. Simpson trial, so it was a lot of tension in the air. I actually remember being there when they read the verdict, like on the school campus at lunchtime, and they read the verdict over a radio. And I thought he was pronounced guilty because all the kids were jumping up and down, and I was like, man, he must have been found guilty, but not guilty. And it showed me that, they not racist like everybody thinks. That's probably a learned trait, or eventually something happens to them that makes them racist. But at that young age, I didn't see it in them, and I can't really say at that school I had a lot of racist encounters or on a blatant level. I got kicked out of that school after 6 months. I was flipping over tables, punching on people, and just really turned into an ugly situation at the moment. I stayed with this famous bass player called Marcus Miller. His kids were going to the school, and he was one of the few blacks that went there, so they founded a need for us to connect. And honestly, he was one of the first black people I saw with money. I was in his house, and it was like a mansion. It was huge. I had never seen anything like that. So to experience that and be exposed to that at a young age, it really planted a seed that I carried with me for the rest of my life. And I knew it was more than just the ghetto. I knew it was more than poverty, and I knew black people more so could have that, and didn't have to act crazy like I was used to seeing people act. Preacher man, stop preaching, cause niggas ain't finna listen. Folks done lost hope and stop trying. Life's a bitch from the start. That's why you come out your mama crying. The world's dying, and the people have gone mad. I take a shit on the White House, wipe my ass with the flag. How can there possibly be peace in a country built on murder, laws passed daily for all to purposely hurt you? I'm the product of a hate that society nurtured. When would the evil end? Too many browns and blacks in the system, victims of legal sin. In court praying for mercy when condemned by evil men. Ain't no love in the heart of the city. If it's a God, where is he? My homie's dying over 150s.